Self-sabotage. When we destroy ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, or when we purposely hold ourselves back by going against our goals and values, taken from Brenner 2019. It's actually more common than we realize. Abraham Lincoln, Fred Rogers, Michelangelo, John F. Kennedy, and George Washington all self-sabotaged before they reached the level of fame that they did. According to Leodem 2017, self-sabotage can be conscious or subconscious. Someone who wants to lose weight might decide to eat a lot of cake. Maybe we procrastinate for subconscious reasons, but why do people procrastinate? Why do people self-sabotage? Well, one, we feel like we don't deserve success or happiness. Some people strive to work hard and aim really high because they're trying to make up for the feelings of inadequacy. They feel like they're not good enough, but then they make the situation worse for themselves. They make the situation worse for themselves by shooting themselves in the leg. Why? Cognitive dissonance is a theory that's been supported. It basically states that people like to be consistent in their actions and their beliefs. And if they don't line up, we feel uncomfortable and try to make them line up. If we get trophies or awards and we still feel like we're not good enough, this causes dissonance, or this makes us uncomfortable. And we want to change that. To make our actions and our beliefs consistent, we self-sabotage. We self-sabotage in order to get rid of that discomfort. For some people, it feels really bad to fail, but it feels even worse to succeed. And this is kind of related to a feeling of familiarity. Some people would rather be consistent than happy. If we're usually overlooked or mistreated by others, we find a way to be in that situation again. If you've been in that situation your entire life, being mistreated, for example, even if you were unhappy, some people would rather be in that situation because of the familiarity than to be in a unfamiliar, better situation. Because the unknown is scary. Some people would rather stay in a familiar but uncomfortable situation than have dignity and respect for themselves, which is pretty sad. This is also kind of a sub-point, but it's related because the reason we feel like we don't deserve success or happiness often has to do with the way that we were raised. Parental neglect, insults, or rejection can lead to damaged self-esteem and self-image, or if we were taught through either our environment, trauma, or our parents that the world is unsafe, we might start to see ourselves as unworthy of good things in life. So we self-sabotage. We think that we're frauds, also known as Imposter Syndrome. That means if you get a new position at work or you attain a higher level of education, you worry that eventually you'll come crashing down because of how high you've reached. That if you draw attention to yourself, someone will call you out for being a fraud. This can manifest as doing the bare minimum and hoping that nobody will notice it, or by doing a lot and constantly working hard, but constantly worried that you'll be revealed as someone who isn't actually that talented. Approach avoidance conflict. Dr. Judy Ho, author of Stop Self-Sabotage, states that self-sabotage might be a biological response. Basically, what she says is that goals have positive and negative aspects. The approach part of it is when we set goals, which releases dopamine, a feel-good hormone. The avoidance part is when we avoid a threat, physical or mental. So like the fear of change. Remember, humans want consistency. Cognitive dissonance theory, and change is more difficult. Self-sabotage, according to Dr. Judy Ho, is when the desire to reduce threats, like fear of change, for example, is stronger than our drive to reach our goals. Comedian Russell Brand talks about self-sabotage and how it can be part of our embedded mental programming. He says that we develop a pattern of self-sabotaging in either our work life or in our relationships. An important concept related to all of this is the fixed and growth mindsets. This comes from the work of Carol Dweck. Basically, someone with a fixed mindset believes that intelligence and talents are fixed and can't be changed or improved on. Someone with a growth mindset believes that one can improve their intelligence and their talents through hard work. Her research found that children who were praised as brilliant or smart had a hard time keeping up their good grades, because when you start to put such high expectations on kids, they start to believe that they're not allowed to make mistakes. This significantly hinders their growth. On the other hand, students who were praised for their hard work outperformed the other kids. They knew that they weren't magical math whizzes or geniuses. They knew they had to study and practice to achieve progress. Those with a growth mindset aren't afraid of making mistakes nearly as much as the other group is. Having a growth mindset will be one of the tools that we can use to improve ourselves and not fear failure as much. So the logical question becomes, How do we stop self-sabotaging, or at least reduce it? Step one is to identify our limiting beliefs. And in order to do so, we might have to face past difficulties. We might have been subconsciously programmed to believe certain things about ourselves and the world from others. We might have internalized negative thoughts without even realizing it. Like, there's no way you can do that, or why don't you study this instead? Or you're just stupid. We've all heard statements like these before, but while on the surface they seem harmless, they can become dangerous when we start to believe them, either on a subconscious or conscious level. Recognize how your fears play out. Sometimes our limiting beliefs show up in ways that we don't expect. As a student might make excuses about not finishing their assignment because they feel like the end result won't be appreciated by the teacher, because their teacher might not like their work if they did finish it. Like, what's the point of doing the work if it's not going to be good enough anyway? And this is often on a subconscious level. So think about when you self-sabotage. Why do you think you acted that way? What does it have to do with your feelings or desires? Are you avoiding something? Answering questions like these and looking into yourself isn't easy, but it can reveal important insight, and that information can help us grow and improve ourselves. Write your thoughts to challenge them. Are they accurate, or do they exaggerate the situation? You might say, I never do anything right, when you really meant to say, I'm angry at myself for making this mistake, and I don't want to repeat it. To challenge the statement, you can add the word but and then a clause after that. For example, I didn't do so well on this test, but that's because I'm still learning. Emily Steenveld, an emotional intelligence coach and transformation speaker, says, if we need to look for an example, we can find a role model in our life who already has the qualities that we seek, and we can emulate them. And of course, be patient with yourself, because a lot of self-sabotage is the result of things we were taught from a very young age, things that we reinforced throughout our lives. So be gentle with yourselves. Until next time.